LatentView Analytics is an IPO-listed India-based data and analytics company providing digital transformation solutions. The company reported a net profit of Rs 22.3 crores in the corresponding Q1 last month. It has become one of the strongest business players in India as well as in foreign markets. We at Analytics Insight are super excited to know more from the CEO, Rajan Sethuraman. Hello viewers. For today's interview, we have with us Sethuraman, CEO of LatentView Analytics. Hello, Rajan. Welcome to Analytics Insight. It's to have you here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on this.
Thank you. Now, can you please give me a small overview about analytics and how it has become a leading tech player in the Indian ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah. While I started with LatentView Analytics in 2016. As an organization, we have been around since 2006. We recently completed 16 years. We are a pure play data analytics company. We focus only on data analytics work. Unlike other IT services organizations, we don't do ERP implementations or custom application developments or infrastructure support. It's an exclusive focus on business problem solving using the power of data and analytics. So that is really what our mainstay is. Within data analytics, however, we are a full spectrum service provider, starting right from what we call analytics strategy, roadmap, and consulting exercise, where we help organizations identify the set of analytics initiatives that they should be executing, given their business goals and business strategies, right? Starting from there, on to helping them with data engineering, where we really help design and architect and implement platforms that can pull in data from multiple data ecosystems, both inside and outside the organization, so that you can then do the analytics on top of it. And then from there on to both look back and look ahead analytics. Look back is the diagnostic descriptive variety, answering questions on what happened and why did it happen. And the look ahead analytics is of the predictive prescriptive variety, which is where we typically also bring in the more new age algorithms around artificial intelligence and machine learning, answering questions on what is going to happen and what should you do about it. So that's the broad spectrum of work that we do. We play more at the front end of the value chain, helping with customer and marketing analytics, but also support our clients with supply chain, HR, people analytics, as well as finance, fraud, risk, counterfeit related work. Our mainstay, again, from an industry standpoint, is largely technology and digital native companies, but increasingly we are starting to do work in retail, in CPG, in banking, financial services, and also in industrial type of entities, including automotive and logistics. So that's the broad spectrum of work that we do. We can get into more details as we go along.
Sounds really varied and very interesting. Now, if we go forward with discussing about data analytics in India, what do you think are the opportunities or like scopes for conjunction in the Indian market?
Yeah, so if you look at the opportunity in India, the demand can come really from multiple sources. Of course, for somebody like us, right now, even though we are an India headquartered company with the bulk of people in India, we are largely supporting data analytics requirements of multinational Fortune 500 companies, right, who are either located in the US or in Europe. And that is where the bulk of the demand is coming from, right, in terms of the work that is being done out of India. But keeping that aside, you also have India as a market itself that you can look at. So there are, of course, several multinationals which have a business in India. I'm talking about companies like a Coke or a Procter & Gamble or a Unilever, for example. For them, India is a huge market. And to serve the Indian market, they will definitely have needs for data and analytics. So that is one big demand pocket. Then, of course, you also have large Indian business houses, including, say, Reliance or an Adani, for example, right? And they have requirements around data analytics. So that could be another source of demand and opportunity. And then you also have Indian public sector entities and organizations, public sector companies owned by government, but also even aerospace and defense, for example, right? So all of these present very interesting opportunities for data analytics work in India. Of course, the Indian market and individual players within the market are at a certain stage of maturity when it comes to using data analytics. However, we see that there are enough prospects. And in fact, when we started this fiscal year, we actually kicked off a small core team, which is now focused on the Indian market, to identify opportunities in India and pursue them. So there is enough traction that we see in terms of conversations. Of course, we'll have to see how this unfolds right in the coming quarters.
That sounds great. Now, I'm really interested to know your idea about what is the technology's role in these MSMEs that are growing in India right now. We have like a lot of startups and like medium-sized companies growing up in India. So what is your on its what is happening with it while with data and technology?
Yeah, sure. I think I talked a little bit about the larger organizations in India, but when it comes to medium-sized organizations, I don't think they are any exception, right? When it comes to using technology to drive competitive advantage. Now, you do have a large number of MSMEs that are focused in very physical type of manufacturing and other activities where you will have the challenges of a material supply chain, for example, right, which could be very important. But of course, you also have, on the other hand, the entire startup ecosystem, which is more digital in nature, which is interacting with consumers as well as other partners and service providers, largely through digital channels. And again, for them as well, I think challenges around information flow, around financial flows, and how do they put the right kind of offers and services. All of these will be very important and pertinent questions that they need to address. The good thing is that in general, the Indian market has matured when it comes to basic technology adoption. So today, when you go and have conversations even with smaller organizations in the MSME space, they do have basic applications and information technology systems that they are implementing, whether it is related to accounting, whether it's related to procurement or marketing or supply chain, right? And that provides the base of data that is necessary for you to do the analytics, which can drive superior decision making, right? And that decision making could be around any of those areas that I mentioned. How do they better engage with their consumers? How do they better market their products and services? How do they ensure that their supply chain flows are very smooth, all the way from procurement right till delivery of goods, right, outbound logistics? Or it could be, how do they manage the regulatory compliance requirements, right? Or from a fraud and risk perspective. All of these are very, very important problems. We have seen in the last couple of years, there have been significant disruptions to supply chain, both of the talent variety as well as of the material variety, right, because of the pandemic. And again, I don't think MSMEs are any exceptions, right, to the challenges that are faced by large organizations. So I believe that it is a very, very important area for any organization. The basic mechanisms that need to be in place are falling in, and therefore it's really a question of how much do they want to accelerate their digital transformation journeys and using the power of data analytics, right, to drive competitive advantage, to make sure that their decisions are optimized. So I think it's kind of like opening up now. As I said earlier, right, we do want to be closely looking at how organizations start using it so that many of the value propositions that we have built for, say, the US or the European market can find relevance in India as well.
Well, that's amazing. Now that we have talked about supply chain industry, now let's move a little towards the digital marketing. And I'm interested to know that how your company is helping to, develop, like grow more data analytics usage in the digital marketing sector.
Sure. No, marketing itself is an area that we have been active in for the last 16 years, right from very early days. A lot of the work that we have done with respect to data analytics has been focused, as I said, on the front end of the value chain, right? How do you understand customer behavior? And then how do you translate that into the right kind of products and services that you can design and develop, and then also market them in the right fashion, right, to the end consumers. So that's been a very, very important area. Today, when we look at how digital marketing can really drive value creation for organizations, one really looks at marketing as being a very significant revenue growth lever, right? Not just marketing from a branding, buzz, and visibility standpoint, but can it actively and directly contribute to revenue growth? So that is the focus that we have right now. So our marketing value propositions are really centered around accelerating revenue growth, right, through the marketing mechanisms. So you could start off with very simple things like campaign analytics, for example, right? Most organizations run marketing campaigns both online and offline. How do you collect the data? How do you ensure that the marketing campaigns are being targeted at the right people? How do you ensure that the marketing campaigns are designed in the right fashion with the right amount of support so that they are effective, right, in converting consumers, current as well as prospective, right? So you could start off from there. You could then look at things like media mix modeling, meaning how do I choose the right media for doing my marketing campaigns? How much do I do online versus how much do I do offline? And online as well, as you know, today there is a plethora of options available, right? It could be social media, it could be internet websites, right? It could be direct to consumer marketing campaigns, right? You have a variety of options available. So deciding on how you optimize your spend across all of these different channels, I think that's a very important area of work where we are supporting a lot of our client organizations. And eventually all of this will boil down to answering bigger questions around the entire marketing return on investment. If an organization is spending X dollars on marketing, how do they make sure that they are getting the maximum bang for the buck? So that is really the core and the crux of the problem solving around marketing analytics. In general, when we undertake marketing analytics work, we see that we are working with the chief marketing officer and their direct reports, the marketing organization, aimed at addressing these kind of pain points and opportunities. And I see that marketing organizations are also transforming, right, in some sense, from being more of an art to a lot more science and structure being involved. So if you look at the various supply chain, the various value chain functions that I talked about earlier, areas like supply chain and finance were very numbers driven, right? They were already seen as very data oriented. But if you take areas like HR and people management or marketing management, they were having a more of that warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Where there is more of an art rather than a science. The good point is that with the growth of data analytics, you are able to bring a lot more data-based rigor and a scientific approach into these areas as well. And that's what is driving the action.
Thanks, Rajan, for explaining that so well to me. Now, on the last question, I would like to ask you that since we are on the last quarter of 2022, what do you think is the future, aims and goals for LatentView, and what is do you think the future of market?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that not just for LatentView, but for anybody who's engaged and who's active in the data analytics space, things are only starting to get warmed up. Most organizations, while they have generated a ton of data because of all the IT sophistication and systems that they have implemented over the last 3 decades, right, starting off with the Y2K problem, most organizations are still only scratching the surface when it comes to using that data to optimize decision making and to drive action, right, internally. So I think this is only just getting started. There is a huge runway ahead of any organization that wants to make big in the data analytics space. From a LatentView standpoint, there are several areas that we are focused on. As I mentioned earlier, we are currently a fairly significant player in the technology and the digital native industries. We are underrepresented in industries such as retail or banking, financial services. So that is going to be one very important area for growth, just pursuing and doubling down opportunities, right, in those target industries. Secondly, we also are doing a lot of work in the front end of the value chain, as I said, right, which is the customer and the marketing analytics. But as I mentioned, supply chain and people analytics are becoming increasingly important. And overall, even the regulatory environment, right, and the compliance requirements is driving more action in finance, fraud, risk analytics. So I think these areas will pick up significantly. Thirdly, I believe that more and more organizations, as they become mature, a lot of the low-hanging fruit in terms of the simple look-back, diagnostic, descriptive analytics, they will get taken care of. And organizations will now shift more towards the more complex end of the spectrum, where they need predictive modeling, where they need a lot more data science type of work. So that is going to drive quite a bit of the action. Fourthly, for us, US is our biggest geography. We are only having a fledgling practice in Europe at this time. While we have subsidiaries in UK, Germany, and the Netherlands, our practice is very small. However, starting off with the IPO that we did recently, we have really started investing aggressively into the European market. We recently brought on board a Europe business head, and he's been building out his team. We are expecting that Europe will contribute significant revenues for us, right, in the years to come. In a 3-4 year time frame, I would expect that Europe would make up about 15-20% of our revenue base. So that is the action that we are driving from a geographic standpoint. And finally, we are also fairly profitable, and we do have cash chest, both from internal accruals over the last 16 years, and also the money that we got in because of the IPO. So we intend to use that also to pursue inorganic growth opportunities, right, in the form of acquisitions. So those are all the different areas that we are focused on, right, to drive growth for LatentView Analytics itself.
Well, that sounds really, really amazing. I'm sure this is definitely going to help all of our viewers too. Thank you, Rajan, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Satavisa, and
Thank you.
look forward to staying in touch.